Hello, everybody. JD here. Welcome to the Rational Trader podcast. With me is my co-host Louis Navalier. It's Friday morning, Louis. Uh, Dog days of summer, August 15th, and the market's in a really great mood. We've got a wonderful summit going on in Alaska. I suppose that could change the market environment. But otherwise, the economic data is a bit squishy, right? PPI and CPI came in at cross currents with each other, but I guess the market's looking past a lot of that, hammering hopes for a rate cut. What say you?
Okay, so the PPI was shocking. It was up 9 tenths versus 2 tenths expected. But when we broke it all down, it was an 11.8% increase in diesel fuel. And once you throw that out, everything was fine. Okay. So I'm in California right now. I don't know if you know what's going on here. They only want green diesel, and they don't seem to understand why the oil companies keep making more diesel. And when you refine a barrel of oil, you do get some byproducts. One is called, other than gasoline, you get diesel, jet fuel, kerosene, asphalt. And they do the people here in California don't seem to understand why they keep making all this stuff they don't want. And so diesel's gone up because everybody only wants green diesel, made from things like bird poop and stuff. So other organic stuff. So. That is largely what caused the chaos. And as you may know, the refineries keep closing here in California. There's a big one in LA, and then a big one in Benicia, California. Actually, the newest, most modern refinery in California is shutting down because they can't comply. Because again, there's no way to reformulate the refineries just to make gas. That's not how it works. And the West Coast runs on heavy sour crude from Alaska.
Mhm.
And that stuff makes more diesel than the sweet crude that they get out of Louisiana and stuff. So, um, again, I can't fix stupid, but that was largely behind the surge in the PPI.
Yeah, none of it, you could argue, was related to tariffs. So the argument that you know, the Jay Powell types at the Federal Reserve, they want to wait and see, if the tariffs are inflationary, and that's
Well,
non-existent.
that's a very important point you brought up. So Goldman Sachs did a report uh, about how there's a bunch of inflation in the pipeline, and consumers are already have eaten 27% of the tariffs. They're going to need a lot more moving forward. So Trump called actually to fire the head economist at Goldman and David Solomon to fire him. The other interesting thing is Barclays did a report explaining why the the tariffs aren't showing up in inflation. And they basically said the tariffs account for about 90%, 9% of the CPI. A lot of economists were estimating 12%, and it's just not as bad. And there's other things that affect it, the deflation in China, the value of the dollar. If the dollar goes up 10 or 15%, that offsets all the inflation. So we should stop worrying about all this stuff.
I always say, Louis, that the good ship USS American economy is so vast, so complex. I've always said the Federal Reserve is just missing an opportunity to create wealth in an area that needs help creating wealth, and that's the vast majority of the middle and lower classes in this country that could benefit from lower interest rates. And
Correct. And that's what Scott Bassett said. He said that 88% of the stocks are held by the top 12% of households. The next 38% of households own the other 12% of stocks. And the other 50% of Americans are in debt. And that's why you got to get rates down to help these people. And of course, he went on Bloomberg and pleaded that they needed to cut 50 basis points and eventually cut another 100 basis points after that. So he called for 150 basis point rate cuts.
There's another demographic, Louis, that does not own stock in the market that may be uh, changing dramatically, and that's the U.S. government. The announcement or speculation that the United States is going to take a stake in chipmaker Intel has been a big headline this week, and I think it's kind of cool that the government is going to be more involved as a venture capitalist and benefiting from the animal spirits in the market. Now, that means you also have to, take the bad with the good, but net net, I think this is a positive development.
Yeah, it is. I'm not worried about the U.S. economy. I'm not worried about inflation spinning out of control. All I can tell you is once you leave America, everybody's contracting. So we're the oasis for the entire world.
Right.
And what makes America great is we have 50 states to compete with each other. And also we assimilate our immigrants, and Trump's not anti-immigration, he just wants you to be legal. And that's a consensus subject right now as they do their raids and stuff. But it's also interesting to notice that Mexico's cooperating with us. When they raided the pot farm in Camarillo, California, and they took the underage kids out, that, those 300,000 kids that are missing in America in the last few years. They were throwing, rocks and bricks at the federal officers. And one of the guys that threw the brick actually ended up in Mexico, and Mexico turned him over to us. So it's it's getting to be very interesting. Obviously, Mexico wants to cooperate with us on tariffs. USMCA gets renegotiated next year, so but they're already losing business, and I'm sure we're tipping Mexico and Canada into recession. Of course, Canada doesn't have to go into recession. They just have to say they'd like to be part of the U.S. and the tariffs go away.
Yeah, it to me that's just another example of how all of this is so complex. Now, let me ask you a quick question, and just this is maybe I'm not understanding things, but when the administration talks about wanting lower interest rates, would it not be a true statement to say that um, actually hiking short-term rates is what you want to do to lower long-term rates? Is that not accurate?
I'm going to leave that up to Scott Bassett. He's better at managing the yield curve, as you may know. Um, uh, how do I say this in a nice way? Janet Yellen couldn't manage the yield curve. She just gave up on the long end of the Treasury auctions and mostly sold short intermediate debt. So the yield curve is going to be maintained by Scott Bessent, and he's doing a much better job than Yellen did.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to opine on either one of those two because I think it's again it's way too complex to just have a knee-jerk reaction to be able to evaluate their performance. But I intuitively it does seem to make sense to me that if you want long-term rates to go down, you want to put pressure on the economy, and to put pressure on the economy is to I know that's antithetical to, what anybody should want, but if the long game, and it does seem like the administration is playing the long game here, you would advocate for some pressure in the near term to bring down those longer term rates. That's theory.
Well, let's just go back to economic theory a bit because this is important. There are two theories out there. One is that the economy is static, and the only way you can get ahead is for Peter to raid Paul. Okay. And that's why you would have tax increases and things like that to spread the wealth. The other is you have to increase the velocity of money, which is how fast money changes hands. And then the faster money changes hands, the more prosperity rises. I'm in that camp. Okay. And if we
Mhm.
all hoard our money, we destroy the economy.
Hmm.
The truth of the matter is a lot of us are getting older. The mean age of the country's gone up, so people are hoarding more, you know. Um, but the key to,
That's super interesting, Louis, if I can just interject quick, because I think what you're talking about is actually very insightful because if I can um, jump ahead just a little bit to what you're saying, really what I think you're saying is that the levers that the Federal Reserve is using to manage the economy in terms of its dual mandate, those levers are appropriate no longer and don't work like they used to.
well, yeah, somewhat. I mean, we have to still be respectful. We have to move. This is a battleship. We have to move. It doesn't turn on a dime. But, you know, I think what makes America great, other than our 50 states compete with each other, is we still have some very pro-family regions in the South, the Mountain West. Household formation creates an incredible amount of organic economic growth. That's why Utah has been the fastest growing state for a long time. And uh, that's the household formation argument. And if you can't have a birth rate high enough to grow the households, you obviously can have immigration. He just Trump wants the legal kind versus the other kind. So, I mean, Kristi Noem gets is a subject of a lot of jokes. Okay, she's on South Park now and all. But to her credit, she says, "Hey, if you will self-deport, we'll give you some money, we'll pay for your fare, and you can come back." And they just want to know who in the hell everybody is. Okay, and because we have these huge underground economies in America and where people, are untaxed. And now what's happening is now that we have a 10% baseline tariff, those people now have to start paying in. And because just wasn't healthy for less than half of America to pay taxes, and of course for a very slim minority not to pay anything, or to pay the vast majority of it. So, and of course they know how to avoid taxes to a certain degree.
Yeah, well, and I think that is a fair complement of the administration's policies, and I can't argue with it. I mean, the issue of immigration and legal immigration and how best to accomplish that. It's actually quite beautiful to be able to say if you self-deport, then there are benefits to doing that, and then we win from that as well. So
Yeah.
that's an example of
And
that.
we do want to see people assimilated. Obviously you're Minnesota and your Somali contingent maybe isn't being assimilated as well as they should be. You know what I mean? So, but
That's a different assimilation. I mean, we could talk for hours on that. That's I had an interesting debate regarding Israel, right? I mean that you if you cut through all of the history, really the solution to me is not a two-state solution, but a one-state solution where there's assimilation. And without that, you're just going to have constant conflict. That's how I view it.
Yeah, and so everybody knows I used to run money for the employees of Gaza Strip when Israel ran Gaza. And obviously Israel turned over Gaza for Palestinians for self-rule.
Yeah,
And
tell folks a little bit about that because what
well,
is
there
your
was
recollection of Gaza at that time?
there was
Prosperous,
a $2
correct?
billion a year flour industry in Gaza. Israel, pulled out all their people and all they literally pulled out the graves and everything in Gaza, and says, "Okay, here you go. It's all yours. We've removed our footprint." And but the leadership just kept stealing from each other. I mean, Arafat's wife lives in Switzerland with hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's just a culture where they steal from each other. And I was alarmed that a lot of the Palestinian people, they marry their first cousins and things, and that's unfortunately a little bit too common in some parts of the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia. And it's hard to make a very smart society when you keep marrying your first cousin. There's some things that happen to you, okay? And then
Well,
on top of
my
that,
my point though is that the when Israel was managing and governing Gaza, you had economic prosperity.
yeah,
And
you
when
did.
they moved out, you didn't. And the absence of economic prosperity usually ends in bad outcomes. And
Yeah,
it ended in October 7th, or
yeah, yeah. But there's just cultures that don't want to assimilate, and there's the Assyrian Christians in the Middle East, and there's the Coptic Christians in Egypt, and they have their little groups. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
But you know, uh,
Well, people made
obviously,
fun of Trump, his vision for Gaza. I actually love it. I think you should you could build a what a great piece of real estate that is.
well, he's trying to get business for his son-in-law Jarrett, and who's backed by UAE, and he's trying to guilt Saudi Arabia and everybody else into redeveloping it. So, but
Yeah.
right now it looks like it's going to be run by Israel, and it's a tragedy. It's why our soldiers, when they came back from Afghanistan, were so screwed up because they would throw a 9 to 12 year old out in the middle of the road to stop, and they stopped and they blew up your convoy. So what happens is you start running over 9 to 12 year olds in your convoy,
Ugh.
and you run over enough kids, and that's you're gonna have nightmares. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah. The
life
PTSD from
is
that is horrible.
yeah, life is fragile. Okay,
Right, right.
and it's and it's just sad how humans treat other humans in some parts of the world. So that's why it's hard to impose our values on other people. You know, it
Hmm. Hmm.
seem to work
Well,
very good.
let's talk a little bit about Trump's foreign policy. And the reason it's important to bring that up, uh, obviously, the summit in Alaska is going on, and that could have huge ramifications for the markets next week, Louis. So I wanted maybe dig into the weeds a little bit. First question for you is you have obviously someone that you work with closely that knows a lot about that region. I'm curious what his thoughts, Yvonne. And then also on a micro level, you're already hearing about discussions regarding rare earths. And there's a stock in your universe that you absolutely love, I believe, Idaho Strategic Resources, ticker symbol
IDR.
IDR. And I've been talking about that one quite a bit ever since the government investment or deal with uh, what's the company? The ticker's MP.
Yeah, MP materials.
MP
Yeah.
Materials. So I've been talking about IDR in terms of having all of the ingredients for a 10 bagger, and that's on the stock. Um, and so what happens in Alaska if that goes through and there is peace? Talk about the economic benefits that accrue from that.
Well, first of all, we would like to have a peace dividend, and we had one under Bill Clinton. Um, so we have to end a lot of the conflicts in the world, and Trump has been very instrumental in Azerbaijan and Armenia ending that conflict. There was one with Thailand and Cambodia that he ended, and you know, um, now he's working on Russia and Ukraine, and you know, Lozinski got to him with Chancellor Merz from Germany and Prime Minister Starmer, and he got him to agree to not talk about changing the borders. Okay. Because what Russia wants is they want not only Eastern Ukraine, but they want Crimea officially recognized as Russian territory. And so he's going to listen to Putin, and we'll see how that goes. but the actual border conversation will be a second meeting, and Zelensky may show up. We'll see. But the uh, the bottom line is Trump just thinks wars are a waste of money, and it's hard to grow your
Well,
economy.
there's
Of
the human tragedy as well that he cares
course, yeah.
about.
And also you destroy, like, Ukraine's been destroyed. I mean, they've lost 40% of their population. Almost all the farmers have been killed. The farms are run by big corporations now. They didn't have that before. And so I don't know, is there a corporate interest to keep this going? I mean, there's all kinds of weird conspiracy theories. But uh, that whole Burisma thing, because Romney was involved in that as well as Hunter Biden, and one of Pelosi's kids was involved. They just wanted to frack for gas in Ukraine, and then Ukraine could supply gas directly to Europe. But what happened is you give people in Ukraine money, and then they disappear. You know what I mean? So there's a cultural problem there, and that's why they're not going to be part of NATO because, one, we don't know the border yet, and two, they don't have the counting rules that you do in other Western societies. So it's just the whole thing's a big mess. Okay.
Yeah, the graph is
But the
pretty
other thing
bad.
is the U.S. was doing its bioweapons in Ukraine.
Hmm.
Apparently, that's been moved elsewhere. We were also doing cyber hacking out of Ukraine. Okay.
Mm.
So when the DNC took out Bernie Sanders, that came from Ukraine. So we had our own little things going on there that was unfortunate. And uh, so it's just a mess. And we'll see if Trump can get the world working again better. Because, just sanctioning everybody forever doesn't work. It doesn't work for Cuba. It doesn't work for North Korea. And eventually you got to integrate them if at all possible. And so we'll see if what we can do. Uh, but Trump tried last time with North Korea. It didn't work, but he tried. He got an E for effort. I would hope that, with Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, we somehow try to integrate Cuba, even though Rubio's family was abused by previous generations. So it's just not healthy to have these cultures. Or look at Haiti. You know what I mean? We
Yeah,
got one of
right.
those Blackwater guys down there running security for Haiti, and the Clinton Foundation, they were trying to help Haiti. It didn't work. But it's just sad. And we'll see if we can um, fix a lot of these problems. We have a lot. I'm in San Diego now, but we have a lot of Haitians in Florida, and the ones we know, they all bust their butt and work hard. But maybe we get the best ones. I don't know. Um, uh,
Tell us a little bit about Idaho Strategic Resources and your
well,
thoughts.
they have they're a gold miner, and their business is healthy because gold prices are up. But they also have a rare earth interest, and they are making an alliance with another company. They're not mining it yet. But what the Trump administration is doing, they're taking strategic interest in companies like MP Materials. Now, the Intel thing is interesting because Intel was supposed to build a plant in Ohio. This is under the Biden administration, but they pulled it because the Defense Department was going to buy 2.4 billion in chips a year from Intel and reneged. So the federal government's the one that screwed up Intel, and obviously Trump would like to get rid of the head of Intel. So the question, are we going to make low grade chips via Intel in America? We'll find that out. But that's very new right now. What's going on?
Yeah, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, Louis, I think having the U.S. government participate in commerce or capitalism is ultimately a good thing with a positive outcome for everybody. Now capitalism is not perfect, as you well know, and there could be some consequences to that. But net, I think that's going to be a positive development. Louis, you talked earlier about your confidence in the economy and the markets, but you also talked about your disdain for the month of August. And so far, the month of August has been pretty good. We're at record highs, selling off a little bit here while we record, but nothing too dramatic.
Yeah, it's rotating. Um, and that's healthy. The other thing that's healthy is sometimes stocks get hit for whatever reason. A lot of times on the news wires, they report their net income, but their operating income's higher, but they don't put their earnings per share. And I've had two stocks that have done that, Sezzle, SEZL, and ISSC. So even though they're beating, they're getting shot because the computers are misreading the news wires. But then they bounce, okay?
Hmm.
And so it's a healthy environment we're in. We are grossly overbought, so I do think uh, I do think uh, we it's time to consolidate a bit. So
Louis, one name I wanted to bring up is Paycom Software. I don't know if you follow it at all, PAYC. And I bring it up because that was a stock we traded in Two Sigma, uh, and when they reported earnings, the stock zoomed higher, rewarded for their performance. We were able to exit the trade. I'm just looking at my spreadsheet here. It was a 42-day trade and we made 9% on the trade. Uh, but for whatever reason, after a stellar earnings report, it was rewarded afterwards, and now it's sold off significantly and it's trading below where we entered it back at the end of June. So um, there is a rotation going on, but it's a to me it's a stock picker's market, is it not?
yeah, and it's also August, so this is an unusually strong August, but the people on Wall Street are not at work. People in Europe are not at work. Everybody's on vacation. The B team's in charge. And I think people just have to realize that
Can you give me a quick opinion on Paycom? I'm just curious.
okay, let me go to my stock grader and pull it up. And the symbol is what? PAYC?
PAYC. Yep.
Okay, so Paycom is a B, so that's a buy. And I'm sorry, Paymous came up. Paymous is one of my stocks.
Okay. Similar. Yeah.
PAYC. Yeah, here we go, Paycom. Paycom is a B. Uh,
Okay.
looks fine. That would be a buy. Let me check the forecasted sales and earnings though, because that's a big one. And
I think their guidance was really strong when they released earnings. So hopefully the analysts followed suit with upgrades in their guidance or estimates.
okay. Here's the deal. Um, sales are supposed to be up 9%. Earnings supposed to be up 17.9. The analysts have revised their estimates higher in the last 90 days, and they have a good surprise history. So yeah, it's hitting on all cylinders, should be fine. So maybe the Sezzle thing hurt the neighborhood, the sector,
Mhm.
uh, but otherwise there's nothing wrong there.
Yeah, and Paycom software is different from Zezel in uh, well, I guess no, I guess Zezel is packaged software as well, isn't it?
Sezzle's payment plans, they hook up a retailer, so when you check out, you can put it on not a layaway plan, but you can
but
choose
just
to.
a payment plan. Yeah.
Yeah, and they charge interest. Yeah,
A pretty healthy interest rate. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm
4%.
looking at Zezel as a Two Sigma trade. I'm skittish, because of the seasonality in the market and the fact that we are seemingly overbought. I mean, I've seen these things though. The market is pinning its hopes on a rate cut, Louis, in September. Do you have any opinions on is the
Yeah,
market
we're
ahead of
gonna get
itself?
that. We're gonna get the cut because we have. Okay, so remember there was an FOMC member that didn't show up at the last meeting because she had personal issues. Okay,
Okay.
she resigned, and so Trump put his head of the Council of Economic Advisors, Mr. Moran, in her spot. And then we had Neil Kashari, your Minneapolis Fed guy, call for a cut. We've had Mary Daly, the San Francisco Fed gal, call for a cut. So we already have five very outspoken people want a cut. Okay.
Yes.
So uh, it's coming. Okay. Cut's coming.
Yeah, it would. I saw Austin Goolsbee kind of fumble an interview this morning. I think the data has them perplexed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But
Imagine that. Isn't there
you
a
know,
joke about put
I,
200 PhDs in a room and
I like Austin. I think he's a good guy. I don't think he's going to fight Mary Daly and some other people, but he's allowed to hem and haw. But Powell's a lame duck, and that's that.
yeah,
So we're going to get a cut. Jackson Hole is a wonderful event. We should watch it. All those central bankers are going to be in a good mood because it's just a wonderful place. And
right.
so
When
it's
when is the September meeting? I
well, Powell's speech is August 22nd, and then the September meeting's in the middle of the month.
Okay, so we're actually going to get additional CPI data. I'm just looking at GDP now. It just came out,
Yeah.
Louis, and it we haven't had an update to GDP now for a week. It stayed the same at 2.5%, so that's very
Well, they should revise their second quarter higher because the retail sales for June were revised up sharply. So that was the big news in retail sales. It wasn't so much the July report, it was the June upward revision.
right, right.
But
Let's talk about retail
you're
sales
looking at
real quick.
you're looking at the third quarter. So no, retail sales were up 9 to 13 categories. There were some surprises like furniture. Autos dominated up 1.4 or maybe 1.6. But anyway, autos dominated. Back out autos, it was still up 3/10. But more importantly, 9 to 13 categories are up.
Right, right. Um, so the economy is doing well. We should have a rate cut because of what I call a deflationary bomb that's coming. But I
Yeah.
don't have confidence that the Federal Reserve is going to have the foresight that it needs.
Yeah, well, maybe we ought to put economists on the Fed. Powell's not an economist. They had some DEI hires on the Fed. So, but your guy, Kashari's a very serious guy.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
ran the TARP program. And when he wants to cut, that means it's time to cut.
There are some really good candidates. Louis, let's leave it at that. Great discussion, folks. We gave you some good stocks to take a look at from a long-term investing perspective as well as from a trading perspective. Even though it is August and some volatility might be um, uh, forthcoming, if you will. Just enjoy the dog days of summer and let's be happy and prosperous.
Excellent.
All
Thank
right.
you.
This is JD for the Rational Trader Podcast. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Louis,